Hey there, Leo. This is your Christmas edition of the week ahead forecast. This is the week going from the 22nd, that's Monday the 22nd, to Sunday the 28th of December 2025. It's an ascendant forecast. And so I'm going to be pacing you through some of the big movements between two planets, some of the shapes and things of interest that I think are going to help you to understand the planetary energies. Now, in this week ahead, it's a lot calmer than last week when we had Mars moving into Capricorn, the start of winter or summer, according to where you are, and also that very potent new moon. In this week ahead, we've got Venus going into Capricorn, and we've got two specific exact aspects, one from Venus to Neptune and the other from Mercury to Chiron, that I'm going to explore with you. So hopefully that's going to be of some help. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. I'm nuts about astrological planetary patterns. And so, yeah, I'm excited to share it with you today. I'm just going to bring up my slides just to keep me on track. And just before I bring up the charts, let me just say thank you to everybody who supports my channel and all the different ways that they do. You're wonderful. So these are the two charts. This is the first one. This is the one for Monday, the 22nd. At midnight. All of these charts are set for a London time zone because I live in this particular time zone out of Portugal, but also London is the midpoint between all the different time zones in the world. So it seems the most relevant for everybody. So we're going from the moon in Capricorn, and over the course of this week ahead, we're going to be heading into the moon being in the sign of Aries in an exact conjunction to Chiron at the end of this week. So you'll see that there's this movement. You'll also see that the planets are moving more firmly into the sign of Capricorn. And you also see that Venus also moves over as well. So as we get going with this week ahead, on Monday the 22nd, we've got the moon in Capricorn just finishing off her business there. She's going to come into a trine with Uranus and later go into the sign of Aquarius and also hook up with Pluto. Now, this is a very dynamic aspect because the moon is activating Pluto and Uranus in their trine at the same time. This is really, I think, on Monday, setting a very sort of exciting pace, one that involves a sort of changing consciousness, especially around the ideas of relationships. With Pluto in your 7th house right now, everything to do with relationships just feels like it's shifting and changing. And also the sort of excitement of what happens with new work and standing in the world in a different way. So I think there's a lot that's transforming. And so on Monday, that sort of transformation really comes forward. It's really apparent. Now, the moon is going to be in the sign of Aquarius up until Thursday, the 25th, Christmas Day. And so in between Monday and Thursday, the moon is also really highlighting everything to do with relationships. It's really bringing relationships into sharp focus. And of course, you might find that your partners and family around you just seem a little bit more irritated, a little bit more emotional. If anything, it feels like they're trying to pull you out of your calm and expressive space. Now, given that you're right now, you've got Mars and the sun in the 6th house, where you're wanting to get on with things, it probably feels like you're not able to attend to things so easily because the people around you are in a rush, in a drama, upset about things, or like just getting their knickers in a twist. So it's important that you're able to stay cool. Now, I do think that on Wednesday the 24th, when Venus comes into the sign of Capricorn, you'll be able to do that. You'll be very, very steady and feeling a very strong sense of being grown up, creating boundaries, being very, very responsible with your time. So it's interesting. I feel like you're working much harder than you usually would. And it's because everyone else around you just seems to be kind of counterintuitive to that. Now, at the same time this is taking place, we're literally moments before, Venus is actually in a square with Neptune. Now, just so you know, every time I do these, I'm talking about aspects when they are exact, but you'll be feeling them coming in for like 4 or 5 days before, and they'll still be operational for another 4 or 5 days after. But these aspects shouldn't be a complete surprise to you. But also taking place on the 24th is this interesting aspect that can really bring out a feeling of it's time to take off the rose-colored glasses. So I know last week I was talking about the sun in a square to Neptune and how you can lose your sense of self and really wonder about who you are and what's going on. With Venus and Neptune in a square together, both of them are different harmonics of love. So Venus is very much about terrestrial love, and Neptune is very much about a celestial love, an etheric love, an unconditional love. And in the square, you become very aware of where you can't seem to integrate love at all. It just feels very much, it's either very physical and down to earth, or it's very celestial and it's very etheric, and it's a beautiful possibility, and yet it just doesn't feel like there's any balance between the two. With this particular square between Venus and Neptune, I really think that the natural tension that comes up between the 5th house, which is all about our creative and passionate love, and that kind of unconditional love and love will never tear us apart kind of idealism and hope and optimism, is really hard up against the reality of love, that love is sometimes painful, and sometimes we have difficulties, and we recognize that maybe our intentions of unconditional love just are impossible to meet. And so I do think there's this kind of longing and nostalgia for the way it used to be, or the way we once assumed love would feel, up against the reality that love on planet Earth. So yeah, that sort of dreamy, idealistic idea about love seems to come up hard against, the reality of love, and the reality that, we all experience things in a different way. We all have a different past. We all have different triggers. We all have different painful experiences, and those painful experiences often come into our relationship. Like the 8th house is often a place where we have to work out all the inner psychology of family connections, in particular stuff from our childhood and our first fated love. There are people who are still in their first relationship, and I honor them so much, but the norm is that we painfully cut our teeth in a relationship before we find something that's going to work, and that we can maintain and feel stabilized in. And so yeah, this feels a little bit painful. It's almost like a realization that nothing's ever really going to match up to the ideal of love and the romanticism of love. But I think it's actually something a lot deeper than that. The 5th house here is very much about our children as well, and the unconditional bond between parents and children. And so with this square, I think we might be mourning the loss of the very first love that we had, the separation from our mums, or possibly the separation from God, like that feeling of, we've fallen from grace, and we're not, I know so many people, I speak to so many clients who have this sensation that what is here is just a fraction of what we can actually feel, that possibly, our reality is like highly tightened around us, and it just doesn't allow for us to love with the full capacity of a human heart. And so yeah, there is this sense of almost hopelessness, or possible victimhood, like that feeling of, oh, it's never going to work. And I don't mean to mock, with my little sad impression there, because I know I've been there. I've been, oh, it's never going to work, because it feels really, really real as we're doing it. So in many respects, this aspect is about us holding on to illusions, holding on to ideals that we can't ever satisfy, thereby creating a problem for ourselves. And of course, as Venus goes into the sign of Capricorn, Venus becomes sober, grown up. Are we cutting off maybe? Or maybe we're just saying, look, okay, that that's nice to dream. It's nice to hold as an ideal of how things should be. But, maybe love is something so much stronger than that. Maybe it is the responsibility. Maybe it is also commitment. Maybe it does feel sober. And maybe it does sometimes feel hard. And actually, maybe that's where some of that joy comes from. Like, we can't really know joy, or can we? I don't know. But one of my thoughts is we can't really experience the highs without the lows as well. And so Venus in Capricorn, as Venus goes into the sign of Capricorn, we're very, very practical. And it's good because also, you've got the sun, you've got Mars, and now Venus coming into Capricorn. It feels like you're getting ready for whatever it is you're preparing for. It might be Christmas, especially if you've got visitors, but it might just be you're kind of clearing away the end of 2025, getting ready for 2026. Whatever you're involved in, Venus going into Capricorn is going to help slow things down a little bit, but make them a lot more reliable, a lot more responsible. And I think actually right now you really value that responsibility, that feeling that where something starts and ends, what the reality of it is. So I definitely see that kind of energy coming in really strong on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, it's Christmas Day as the moon goes into Pisces. Now, the moon in Pisces in the 8th house really does bring up all of those things that I've been talking about already. The 8th house is that psychological place of where relationships deepen and where we come into a deeper level of trust. And so I know when, the moon goes through the 8th house, we can feel very, very aware of like nuances and triggers. We're very sensitive to the things that people say and whether there's a double meaning behind it. And of course, we'll never know what is in somebody else's reality because we're not seeing the world through their eyes. We're not feeling it through their body. We can only do it through our own. And so one of the things I think is really important to do on Christmas Day and beyond that is to really ask, who does this belong to? When something comes up and it feels uncomfortable, or you hear something and you think there's a little context underneath, like ask, who does this belong to? Is this coming from one of your fears? Or is this something real? And if it is it possible to clarify things? Is it possible to get a bit clearer about it? Now, don't worry. I mean, things are going to clear up as we get to the end of this week. And I really do think that the reason this, Venus and I think this Venus and Neptune thing is very well timed because it's really helping us to clear away some of our deepest fears and deepest insecurities and most hidden ones, because Neptune really hides things beautifully. It makes everything a bit confusing and difficult to work out. And so we're getting the chance to really clear it off as we're going into the new year. So I think this is quite helpful. So Christmas Day, people are highly sensitive. On Boxing Day, we call it Boxing Day in England, on the 26th, towards the end of the day, the moon is going to be coming into a conjunction with Saturn and Neptune and highlighting this ongoing square that they both now have with Mercury. And so you might find that conversations can feel a little bit close to the bone. But do you know what? I think people are actually starting to open up. People are starting to recognize that we do need to talk. We do need to connect again. And, there are loads of conversations out there. When I think about all the family conversations that I've lived in throughout my whole life, there's loads of shorthands, aren't there? Shorthand phrases that means the conversation comes to this level, doesn't go beyond there, because there's this shorthand code for this is the answer. Don't push me on this. And so, yeah, I do think there's a bit of a dance going on. And on the 26th, you might be able to just lift the lid up a little bit and see beyond it. But only do that if you absolutely, feel confident to do so. And then on Saturday, the 27th, the moon is coming into the sign of Aries. And all of a sudden, things are going to feel so much lighter. Because the moon in Aries is, it's another fire sign. So you understand that energy. The moon is really like, go, 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 really sort of up there. The 9th house is also very freeing and liberating. It feels great. And it feels exciting. And also, as we're coming into the end of this week, Mercury makes an exact trine with Chiron just as the moon comes into a conjunction with Chiron. To me, this Mercury Chiron trine is beautiful. It's the last of these Chiron trines this year. And to me, this is really closing down all of the healing experiences you've had in 2025, all of those healing conversations, whereby you've probably learned more about how to get into those conversations, how to stay in those conversations, how to move and transform in those conversations. It's bringing up a sense of gentle breakthroughs, where old wounds can be observed and not personally really gone into in a deep way. I think it can bring up wisdom, a sense of relief, and also a sense of deeper insight. Now, I will say, you know, the moon coming into a conjunction with Chiron is likely to make it a little bit more emotional. So you might feel an emotional, like, I don't know, all of a sudden something gets you and you think, oh my God, what was that? I felt something there. It didn't quite feel good. But if you like, you know, with Mercury here in the trine, I really think you can recognize and have that language between your body and your mind. So you feel something in your body and you think that didn't quite feel right. And then you have the sense to sort of ask yourself, wow, what do you think that was? Who does this belong to? What am I observing about myself? And then, you know, if there's a conversation, because like if you felt this after a particular thing was said, you know, there's your clue right there. But anyway, I do feel that as we're coming into the end of this week, Sunday the 28th, there is this wrapping up, a review of all the things you've learned and shared, and all the things you've helped to heal and release. I know, I mean, I've been going through my Chiron return this year. I'm really at the end of my Chiron return, which happens around, you know, the age of 49 to 51, depending on different people. And, you know, all of our insecurities come up. And you know, I've been learning that, you know, once you start to face things and look at them in a new perspective, all of a sudden you can deal with more and more. And so each time a new episode comes up, it seems to pass a bit faster, a bit more smoothly, because you're upskilling along the way. Nobody can really tell you how to do it. So my advice here is still follow your intuition, do it your way. But I really do get the sense that this is, you know, one of the last things that we're going to be looking at and feeling into in 2025. So an interesting Christmas week. And ultimately, I think this is about clearing out those insecurities and those disappointments that love isn't as it should be. And, you know, that is coming from maybe that childhood wish, that, you know, that feeling of safety that you might have had. You know, some of us might have had it all the way throughout our childhood, but you know, some people might not have had that at all. But that sense that there should be that feeling of safety. You know, I know when I was younger, I used to every now and again see, you know, a Christmas movie, and it feels so safe and it feels so joyous. It doesn't always match everyone's expectations, but that feeling that you get where you feel like everything is right, everything is cozy, everything's safe. You know, I do think, you know, we often have this expectation that things can feel like that again. And yet this um, Venus and Neptune square is saying parts of it are possible, but we also have to be realistic that we're also in a world co-creating with other people with their own insecurities, and we're just kind of bumping up against each other. So I do see we're becoming more real in our love, and in our responses to love, and that healing is coming on in a big deep way. So there you go, Leo. That's my thoughts for the week ahead. I hope you have a beautiful Christmas week with your friends, family, or however you're spending it. And if you like the way I do this and you want to learn more or have more of my forecasts, then go to my free, it's now free, my free school community at www.school/ SKOOL, by the way, school.com/ Feel Good Astrology. Or you can also scan the QR code above. There's daily forecasts, there's a weekly relationship and connection forecast, also a money, ambition, and career forecast for all 12 signs. And I'm also going to be teaching a curriculum from January the 6th as well. So if any of that sounds good, then just come along and have a look. It's all there for you to connect with. So anyway, have a brilliant one. Hope to connect with you soon. And yeah, take care. Catch you next time. Bye for now.